And we're back here at AAA Live. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Mula sa Amerika, balik tayo dito sa Pilipinas. Of course, I'd like to invite everyone to watch us every Wednesday, 7 to 8 in the evening. AAA Live, where your academic goals are advanced and achieved. At syempre, hindi lang yung magandang ehemplo ng international standards ang ating tatalakayin ngayong gabi. Pero dito, mismo sa Pilipinas, we will go through the academic journey of someone who's an exemplary example for our youth both students and those stakeholders in the education sector. So napakaganda ng ating premiere. 2 oras po ito ngayon. And of course, I'd like to inform everyone because this is our Philippine launch for this month of September. From September 16 to 30, we will have every weekday an episode of AAA Live, and we will resume our regular programming from the month of October every Wednesday from 7 to 8 in the evening. So since kailangan na nating simulan ang ating second segment, so gusto kong ipakilala ang ating patunlak na panauhin ngayong gabi. Siyempre, napakaganda ng ating umpisa at masasabi kong maraming salamat sa ating panauhin ngayong gabi na napaunlakan tayo na siya ay sumama sa ating AAA Live for tonight. So, of course, our guest is none other than the Honorable Salvador Bong Belaro Jr. So, he was the Assistant Majority Leader for the 17th Congress, and he is the chairman of Unang Edukasyon Party List. Siyempre, napakaganda ng kanyang academic performance and academic journey. He was a graduate of Master of Laws degree from Cornell University in New York, USA. He was an alumnus of the University of the Philippines College of Law and, of course, had a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science as his pre-law course, cum laude. And, of course, before that, shout out yan dun sa kanyang mga kababayan sa Bicol region in Camarines Sur, where he was the salutatorian in Partido State University, and syempre yung kanyang elementary school sa Goa, Camarines Sur, where he was the valedictorian. So siguro, Kong, bigyan nyo naman kami ng inyong mga greetings para sa lahat ng ating mga nakikinig ngayon sa AAA Live here at the Education Channel.
Magandang araw po sa lahat ng nakikinig at nanonood na alam ko ay milyon-milyon na ngayon all over the world sa AAA Live. Congratulations, classmate April, for this very wonderful show na alam ko naman na talaga makabuluhan at maraming natutulungan sa pagpalaganap ng kaalaman at tamang-tama sa panahong ito. So, yes. I would like to greet especially yung mga kababayan ko dyan sa Camarines Sur, sa Bicol region, yung mga estudyante ko sa Wesleyan University College of Law, at of course, ang mga estudyante rin namin sa aming eskwelahan sa Global Center of Education Management Science and Technology Corp sa Caloocan City, at lahat ng mga technical vocational training institutions all over the Philippines. Mga mag-aaral, mga estudyante, mga guro, mga faculty members at iba pang mga staff ng lahat ng universidad sa buong Pilipinas. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat.
Yes, maraming salamat, Kong Bong. Siyempre, atin munang tatalakayin kung saan nagsimula, di ba, ang ating educational journey para sa inyo. So, ang aking unang katanungan sa inyo is really, what sort of interest did you have as a young person? So, nung kabataan nyo pa, paano nyo na-desisyonan na yun talagang pag-aabuga siya ang gusto nyong maganap sa inyong hinaharap?
Alam niyo po, yung aking pong tatay ay isang frustrated lawyer.
Ganun ba?
Since idol ko po yung aking tatay, so parang pinagpatuloy ko ang kanyang pangarap.
Mm-hmm. And syempre, paano yun nag-umpisa? Syempre, napakaganda naman ng academic performance mo mula nung elementary to high school. So, inambition mo ba right away kaya nag-political science ka sa University of the Philippines?
Yung aking tatay po kasi sabi ko nga ay aking idolo. Siya po ay naging counselor sa aming bayan. So, at nakita ko naman na if you want to go to law school, ang preparatory course during our time na available lamang ay political science. So, yung stereotype preparatory course. So, I took up political science and the rest is history.
Yes. So while you were actually also in undergraduate and law school, ano naman yung mga activities na pinagkabisihan mo? Kasi napaka-importante yun sa ating mga mag-aaral na ma-develop nila both yung academic skills nila as well as their involvement in non-academic activities, hindi ba?
You have to be a people person. Kasi yung politika,
anong mga activities yun?
Yung mga available activities usually sa isang college setup, yung debating, writing, and
Kasi ikaw
organizing.
yung captain ng debating team ng Alpha Phi Beta, di ba? And then you were also a writer for the Philippine Collegian. So syempre, nandun yung communication skills, di ba, na kailangan nating i-develop if you really also want to go into the field of law, di ba?
Opo, ito po yung magandang mga skills na pwede nating pasukan kasi madidevelop yung mga kailangan mong i-gamitin pag ikaw ay papasok sa politika o sa pag-practice ng political science as a practitioner.
Yes, and also of course yung sa law, what will be the parameters in terms of the skills na kailangang i-develop ng ating mga kabataan kung gusto talaga nilang maging successful in the field of law sa inyong paningin?
At tingin ko po it's the passion for the truth. Kasi kailangan mong, you have to be an advocate for your client. So you have to know where you stand in terms of positioning. In advocacy, dapat alam mo what are the weaknesses, what are the strengths of your case. So you have to know that so that you could argue best for your client.
Yeah, that's why it's called legal advocacy, di ba? Kailangan talaga yung position is going to be very clear. So, is it a natural progression nung natapos ka naman ng pag-aabogasya mo? So, of course, you became a senior associate in a leading law office, Sigyon Reyna Law Offices. How did you decide then to venture now into the field of the academe? Kasi yun yung mga posisyon na nagkaroon ka. Halimbawa, of course, Vice President for Administration ng St. Dominic Salvio, and then eventually Dean of the College of Law, and then also Vice President for Student Affairs in the University of Caloocan City. What was then the transition to the academic community?
It's a natural transition. I think kasi it's always available to every lawyer that you share your knowledge to yung mga aspiring law students. And siguro it comes natural because we are a family of teachers. Ang nanay ko is a teacher. My wife is a teacher. So nandun po yung advocacy, yung makatulong, makashare, and may kasama sa within the realm of interest, kumbaga.
Yeah, so because of your interest in education, how will you now make the transition from the academic community? Bakit mo naisipan to really start unang edukasyon? Do you think that education is really more of a disadvantaged sector in our country? That's why you wanted to take that advocacy for education?
We traveled back to 2012. That's the start of unang edukasyon party list.
Yes.
In 2012, at that time, I was a lawyer searching for my place in the sun, kumbaga. So
Yes.
I was then Dean of College of Law, St. Dominic Salvio College.
Yes.
And I'm in touch with a network of teachers all over the country. These are college professors who we are similarly situated in the fact that we are aware of the problems besetting the education sector. But at the same time, we realize that we're so limited in what we can do. And then at that time, that is about the party list elections is about to come. And we realized that the party list system is an avenue wherein we can ventilate our programs, our advocacies, and we ventured into that field. So what we did is that we organized unang edukasyon party list so that we become more relevant. We went down from our ivory towers so that we would test in the political ground what we believe are our prescriptions to make education a better system in the Philippines.
So what were the pressing concerns or mga masasabi nating mga problema na kailangan talakayin para sa edukasyon and that you will definitely want to address with a platform of government with una ang edukasyon?
Yung aming platform ay mas-summarize meron kaming motto. Ang tunay na pag-asa ay nasa edukasyon.
Yes.
Because we believe that education is not just an end in itself, but rather it's only a means for empowering yourself, your family, the community, and the entire country. So with that, meron kaming more or less apat na aspeto para ma-realize yung empowerment na yan.
Okay, ano naman po ang mga aspeto na to?
Mahilig kami sa yung mga titles, which summarizes our terms.
Sa school.
The first one is, of course, empowerment.
Yes.
So, ang gusto namin yung edukasyon sa Pilipinas ay hindi lamang magkaroon ka ng degree, that's an end in itself. But your education should be able to translate into something financially rewarding. It should either lead to entrepreneurship or a lucrative professional practice or some opportunities that is way, way larger than your educational attainment. That's empowerment.
It's going to be a tool towards development and improvement, hindi ba?
Yes. And that's I realized when I also pursued my postgraduate studies abroad. Nakita ko that ang dami ring mga similarly minded individuals, similarly minded scholars, especially in the academia. Yun ang gusto nila. Gusto nilang yung edukasyon natin ay maging tool for a higher thing that could possibly happen to ourselves. Pangalawa, it's letter P.
Ano naman yun?
Protection.
Okay.
We want to protect the disadvantaged sectors of our society. Kasi what's the use of education kung meron mga nakakalamang at malalamangan? So somehow there's the leveling factor doon. This is our duty to society para tulungan itong mga disadvantaged sectors who has no access, who has very little means to acquire an education. And you have to do something for that. Ito yung mga disenfranchised members of our society. The third one is...
These sectors, maybe kung pwede mo rin silang i-identify because naturally, meron talaga tayong right to education based on the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Sino-sino ba tong disenfranchised pagdating dun sa access to education?
Yung sinasabi namin disenfranchised, hindi lang yung stereotype na concept natin ng disenfranchisement. It could be a situational thing. For example, the single parents. They are disenfranchised by virtue of their specific peculiar situation. The senior citizens, those in the Aboriginal communities.
Yes,
those
yung
located
communities natin.
in the peripheries of our hinterlands, our islands. So these are different kinds of disenfranchisement. And I believe that for education to be available to most of us, because as you said, it's a right, then the government has to step in, has to do something about it to level the playing field.
So ito yung masasabi mo, kaya gusto mo ng protection for the right to education. Okay. Ano naman yung pangatlong aspeto ng inyong platform?
The third one is also a P. It's promotion. Alam mo po, yung edukasyon natin ay maraming sektor. So we have the teachers, the students,
Dami stakeholders
the universities, and even the university and schools, maraming kategorya yan. May mga state universities, may private universities, may local universities, may private schools, may public schools. They have peculiar needs to each of them, as well as the staff and non-academic personnel. So for education to work, we have to make a blended unison para ma-promote yung kanilang specific interest.
Okay, so it's for the stakeholders' interest that you would like to promote. Is that correct?
And lastly, ma'am, of course, it's the balancing thing. B is for balancing.
Ano naman to?
Yung balancing is, kasi nga, divergent yung mga sectors as well as the interest. They could be divergent and they could be conflicting. So somehow we should strike a balance within all these sectors in the education field. So yun po ang apat namin is empowerment, protection, promotion, and balancing.
Okay, so given this platform of government in the 17th Congress, ano naman yung mga sinulong niyo po nating bills through una ang edukasyon para nga ma-improve ang ating educational system?
Yun po siguro, with all due respect, doon po kami hindi namin change yung taong bayan. Kasi po, ng 17th Congress, our party list, per the record, we stand by our record that we are one of the most prolific party lists in the 17th Congress. We filed around 500 bills and resolutions. Most of them are in the field of education.
So siguro yun din yung dahilan kung bakit noong 2016 at the succeeding years, kayo ang naging isang most outstanding congressman. Kasi sa dami ng bills na inyong na-file, hindi ba?
Salamat po. Yan po ay courtesy naman ng Super Brands Philippines. It's a Philippine company which awards outstanding individuals in various fields. Kaya po tayo na-award 40 consecutive years. And nagpapasalamat din po ako sa University of the Philippines Alumni Association for recognizing my work, for recognizing me as a 2018 Outstanding Alumnus for Public Service. One of the outstanding alumnus.
So with those achievements, maybe you can discuss with us some of those notable bills. Hindi man syempre alam natin lahat ng bills na ina-file natin sa Congress, mahaba pang proseso para siya ay maging batas. Kasi ngayon nga, magkakaroon ulit tayo ng isang magandang pagkakataon para talakayin talaga ang edukasyon. Kasi nagbago na ang sitwasyon dahil nga sa pandemya mula noong nakaraang taon. So ano-ano yung mga notable bills na posible pa nating isulong at posibleng mabigyan ng suporta ng ating mga stakeholders?
Noong pong 17th Congress, kami po sa Edukasyon Party List, we are proud to say that kami po ay parte ng pagbalangkas ng Free College Education Act na ngayon po ay isa ng batas.
Which is the UNIFAS, the Unified Financial Assistance for Tertiary Education. Hindi ba? Yun po yung batas na pinapatungkol natin. Okay.
Yes po. And also the Free Wi-Fi in Public Places Act. So yung pong dalawang notable bills na yon. And of course, yung iba pang mga bills about many other aspects of the educational sector na amin pong isinulong. And in fact, for every sector yata, may final kami na mga bills or resolutions to push for our advocacy.
Yes.
Ngayon naman po sa incoming Congress, kung po ay papalarin na mahalal ulit, ay gusto po namin ay pagpatuloy ang aming nasimulan noong 17th Congress. And may mga naisip po kaming mga pet bills na dadalhin kung kami po ay pagkatiwalaan po ulit ng taong bayan.
Okay. Ano naman itong mga responsive and relevant bills na ito? Kasi nga sa pagbabago ng ating sitwasyon sa larangan ng edukasyon sa ngayon.
Ang unang-una po dyan is a concrete educational and sufficient, a concrete, specific, and sufficient educational response to the educational situation we are in. Which is, ngayon po, iba na ang educational system natin ngayon. Naalala ko nga dito, may isang joke na kumakalat sa, ano ba yon sa YouTube.
Anong sabi niya?
Sabi ng teacher, modules, modules, modules. Yan sa probinsya. Ngayon po. Tapos pagbalik daw ng teacher, marami na siyang dala. May dala na siyang itlog, may dala siya ng gulay. So,
hindi lang modules.
It's a reflection of what is going on. I don't think it's bad to carry eggs and vegetables coming from the households. But what I think is that it's a reflection. It's a very, very dramatic representation of what's happening in the educational system, especially in the peripheries. So gusto po namin tutukan yung panibagong sitwasyon sa edukasyon ngayon brought about by the pandemic.
I think so ano namang mga components na nakikita nyo dito sa bill that will address these particular needs right now?
I think yung po kasi nang nagkaroon ng pandemya at nagkaroon ng online system of education as a delivery of education for many, especially in the private schools. Pero at the same time, na-disenfranchise naman yung nasa public schools kasi sila walang online education puro lang silang modules.
Considering 90% of all the student populations in the Philippines are in the public educational sector, papaano kaya yan pwedeng ma-address ng mga bagong batas na kailangang balangkasin ngayon sa Kongreso?
Ang nangyari ngayon, this further reinforces the divide. Hindi lang siya digital divide It's the economic divide between those who have and those who have not. Yung mga maka-afford ng private schools, meron silang online education. Yung mga wala, they make by with the module system, which is very inefficient. Yung isang recent study po ng World Bank at pati yung OECD na yung ating mga bata ay lagging behind by way of global standards with respect to competency in reading, math, and science. These are the basic skills na dapat na nakaka-alarma. And this, I think, is an education crisis in itself. Nakailangan natin tutukan. We should be concerned because it's an education of our children. The future of our country lies in our children. Paano kung kulang sila sa kaalaman? So ito po ay nakaka-alarma. And more than ever, we should fight for it in the 17th Congress to push for laws na ito po ay ma-address kaagad and effectively.
Okay, considering nga kong na ngayon is second school year na natin na wala tayong face-to-face classes of our students and limited lang nga dun sa medical or allied medical sciences fields ang pinapasok na college students. Anong tingin mo na kailangan pang mga batas na kailangan isulong ng unang edukasyon para ma-address din yung ganitong pangangailangan?
Firstly, dapat to ay the government should reconsider its position fastly and urgently its decision not to hold face-to-face classes. Because we have here a case of a lost generation na hindi, pwede naman siguro natin gawin na may face-to-face classes but following standard protocols, health protocols.
Okay.
Sabi nga nila, we are only one of two countries left in the world na hindi pa nag-reopen ang classes.
Yung isa Venezuela.
Yes. And considering the fact that dapat may milya-milya tayong advantages because one of the three largest English-speaking countries in the world. Nakakapandu mo yun. Parang nauunahan pa tayo ng ibang bansa. So, I think it's a clarion call for the government, personally, that they should reconsider the decision not to open face-to-face classes immediately. I think it's an urgent concern that we need not sacrifice the future, the learning of our students. We need not sacrifice for the sake of these things because ang isipin natin, day by day, nauungusan ang ating mga kabataan in terms of learning. Ang laking pagkukulang nito, and there will be a generation gap pagdating ng araw kasi ang hirap as an educator, parang ang hirap habulin ng learning ng mga kabata na nag-transition sa junior high school, sa senior high school, sa elementary, na kulang ang kanilang kaalaman.
Okay.
As studies would show, dapat dun sa crucial, sa preschool pa lang, dapat binubombard na sila ng tamang kaalaman para sila makapag-progress. And these are the tickets to, para mas makapag-progress sila sa educational level nila.
Okay. Ano naman yung mga posibilidad ng mga programa na isusulong sa mga batas para rin i-training yung ating mga magulang na pwede nila ding tulungan yung kanilang mga anak tungkol sa kanilang edukasyon?
Yun po, ma'am, yung context, no?
Yes.
As for the specific programs that our party list would try to advocate in the 19th Congress, ito po ay nalilinya sa specific na konteksto na ito ng ating panahon. So, for one, first, we would advocate for the strengthening of Wi-Fi and its democratization in the entire Philippines. So that all public schools would have access to the internet. Ako po ng 17th Congress ako po ay isa sa mga author ng Free Wi-Fi in Public Places Act. Pero
before the pandemic, hindi ba ko?
Pero nalulumo po ako kasi ngayon, matagal na napasa yung batas pero limited pa rin yung internet natin. Tingnan nyo ngayon, nagka-pandemya. Nag-online system, yung mga private schools lang ang merong online system of education. Paano naman yung public system na dapat natin mas malaking sektor yon, mas maraming kabataan. So I think it is an urgent concern for the government to democratize this system kasi we have already crossed the Rubicon. Kumbaga,
wala na
tayo sa online system. Everything now is going online. So what we need to do is to enable the public sector, the public school system to catch up with the private school system in terms of online education.
Okay. So una, di ba, sa online education, talking about yung connectivity, paano naman yung access to the gadgets? Kasi ang nangyari nga, may mga local government units and even provincial governments na isinulong yung pagbibigay ng mga gadgets in the forms of tablets or laptops or other devices sa ating mga mag-aaral. I
think there should be a holistic strategy on this. Halimbawa, yung yung third telco na papasok, dapat kaagad bilisan na magpasok ng third telco. So hindi lang ito isang concern ng LGUs but also the national government. Dapat walang monopoly para mas magmura ang internet, mas malawak ang reach nito, and also mas yung DICT rin, dapat kung tutukan nilang programa ay para mas mabilis ang reach sa mga far-fetched municipalities para lahat sa buong Pilipinas masabi natin that we could really have an online, honest-to-goodness, online education system all over the Philippines.
Okay. How about naman yung concern natin dun sa ating mga module creation? Because as of last counting, syempre napakalaki ng budget na sinasabing kakailanganin ng Department of Education para magkaroon ng mga modules na yun nga yung distributed o pinapamudmod sa buong Pilipinas sa ating mga mag-aaral.
I think that's a double-edged strategy. Kasi on one hand, napakagastos po kung mag-rely tayo sa mga modules. Why not kung i-devote mo yun sa modules, yung perang yan, ay gawin mo lang, ay palakasin na lang yung internet yung sa budget. I-realign na lang natin yung budget natin para mapalakas. Mag-invest tayo dun sa infrastructure rather than this modules. Kasi eventually, pag may maganda na yung digital infrastructure mo, hindi na natin kailangan ng modules. Or probably some monetary, financially rewarding endeavor for some sectors, kaya nagkakaganyan. But the thing is that the government should set the initiative. It is its responsibility. This is the government's responsibility to set the pace. Dapat po ang pace natin is that yung gobyerno ang magtatag ng malawak na internet, yung accessible na internet sa buong Pilipinas, rather than concentrate its budget on the creation of modules na after that, hindi na naman makakinabangan. Malaking kasayangan po ito sa pera ng taong bayan.
Yes. So actually, you also talked about yung iba-iba kasing klase ng ating mga edukasyon dito sa Pilipinas. Siyempre, meron tayong basic education that covers yung K-12. And then yung mga concerns ng ating mga kolehiyo, which is higher education. And then naroon din yung technical education. Sinasabi mong ibang aspeto ng mga bills. Meron ka bang masasabi tungkol dun sa plataforma ng unang edukasyon na medyo may patungkol doon sa iba-ibang klaseng edukasyon na ating sinusulong?
Actually po, yung sa global, yung sa connectivity, internet, hindi lang naman po yun for the purpose of educating the different sectors of yung iba-ibang klaseng tech book, private schools, but also yung global connectivity rin.
Yes.
Kasi our citizens, our students will be more in touch with the rest of the world. So isang aspeto rin po yan. So we're a global village, so hindi po tayo pag-iiwanan. So that's another aspect. Now,
yes, yung internationalization initiative for education, hindi ba?
Yes po. Yun namang dyan, may kakibat na programa rin po kami iniisip. Kasi when you speak of an online environment,
yes,
may pagbabago rin pong may intervention din po kailangan gawin with respect to the teachers, with respect to the students, the parents, kasi nabago po ang atmosphere. In fact, there's a study that may nakalap po kami report na mas mahirap sa mga teachers yung online teaching.
Yes, actually.
So, dapat aralin natin, the government should intervene kung paano natin masuportahan ang ating mga guro para mas maging efficient sila in an online environment.
So hindi ba pwedeng magkaroon din ng batas para sa subsidy or incentives for the teachers training or trainers training, kasi yun ang mas kakailanganin din pagdating dito, so how to navigate the new environment of learning?
Yes, so dapat po magkaroon tayo ng technical working group para magsabatas tayo ng mga kaakibat na mga strategiya para ma-address yung kakulangan na to sa aspetong ito, so that they could support the teachers, the parents. Especially yung parents, affected din sila kasi pag nag-online school yung mga anak nila, yung isang parent automatically should devote time for one kid. So hindi na siya makapagtrabaho. So yun ang aralin natin, how we could supplement by way of laws yung mga ganitong klaseng adjustment.
Okay. So napakarami talagang aspeto na masasabi natin yung unang edukasyon na kailangang harapin. So in terms of like priority, kung anong masasabi mo na pinaka-urgent natin siguro na bill na kailangan nating isulong sa susunod na kongreso?
In addition to that, ang isa pang isusulong namin is, yun pong, nakita kasi namin dito ang isang problema, kalat-kalat yung ating mga educational strategies.
Yes.
On one hand, for basic education in DepEd, Department of Education, the head of which is the Secretary of Education, he's an appointee of the President.
Yes.
On the other hand, you have the Commission on Higher Education, which has a charter of its own. To a certain extent, impervious siya to what's going on in the Department of Education because separate charter of its own. And then you have the Technical Skills Developing Authority for Techbook Education, who is under the auspices of the Department of Labor and Employment. So
Kasi manpower training and development
Yes.
kasi sila in terms of mandate.
in other countries, isa lang po yung education minister or czar. So we are thinking along that line. And also you also have to include the local government, local universities na under naman sila indirectly because of the composition of the board of trustees na under sila the local government.
Yes.
So dapat we should have a unified education ministry at gawin na lang ating bureau itong sa higher education, sa basic education, sa technical education. I think mas mapabuti ang ating education system. So it will be one of our bills that we will push for in the 19th Congress.
Hindi ba
Pag-isa
yan ang
nito,
dating sistema bago tayo nagkaroon ng trifocalization of education?
Yes, but that's a different context. Dati kasi napaka madaling, medyo may specific context yun eh. Yung pre-Marcos years, ganun ang nangyari. But
Yes.
now, if you go by comparative studies, mas maraming bansa sa mundo, yung ngayon ay may isa lang na education ministry para mas madaling mag-manage, para mas organized. One specific instance that is applicable is we have senior high school, there's a strand of techbook. So it's
Yes,
one aspect na dapat mag-usap-usap ng maayos yung TESDA, yung DepEd, and CHED. Pero anong nangyayari ngayon? Pagdating ng estudyante sa kolehiyo, uulitin yung mga subjects na kinuha na. Maraming nasasayang, maraming pinagkakitaan. Yung TESDA naman ay nagkakaroon ng sarili niyang kumpas na hindi naman aligned sa DepEd at CHED. So these are mga matters that should need to be, to be synchronized so that we could have a more efficient educational system.
And how do you also meld that with the mandate naman of the DICT, isa sa mga pinakabagong departamento ng ating government?
Yung DICT naman, specific yung mandate niya is for the online. But yung sinasabi ko yung sa education kasi, by itself, a specific mandate na kailangan talagang, but definitely have to coalesce in the light of our the online system of education in the country today.
Okay. Another important aspect na kailangan din nating harapin ay tungkol naman dun sa budgetary constraint or limitations din. Because as we know, of course, yung ating education sector na nga ang kumukuha ng pinakamalaking chunk ng ating budget. So paano naman haharapin din yung ating pangangailangan in terms of like the economic balancing with the educational needs of the country, Kong?
Reprioritization. If you know what's important in the scheme of things, you can prioritize that thing. And ang sinasabi ko po is that dapat i-prioritize natin ang internet. Kasi kahit na marami ang budget natin, if you don't know how to prioritize it, there will never be a sufficient budget for anything. Napansin ko po yan when I was nasa 17th Congress kami during the budget deliberations. Marami po kasing items yan. Of course, you could always put everything under the sun as a necessity in the budget. But you can pare them down. And kaya nga po importante yung boto ng ating mga mambabatas para po ito ay matapyas. Kasi hindi naman importante renaming of this, university to, hindi naman kailangan yan masyado eh. why don't we devote our funds to the most important needs of the educational sector? Ako tingin ko po, we have to devote a larger chunk of our budget to this online education system.
Okay. So since this is the mode actually of delivery now, yung possibility for all academic programs, kung anumang klaseng edukasyon na to. So yun bang masasabi mong pinaka-urgent na bill na kailangan nating harapin sa susunod na kongreso?
Among others po, of course, sabi ko nga, you have to take care of all the interest of all the, kumbaga ang education kasi ma'am is parang pagluluto. It's like cooking. There are so many ingredients that for education to work, you have to have a formula para maging masarap yung ulam. So all of them, you have to
sabi natin balansyadong formula sa ating lulutuing rekado so as to maybe balance of the interest in the education sector.
And suit the Philippine style, the Philippine palate.
Yes, natin, diba?
Opo. So you have to take care. Hindi ko naman sinasabing ito lang gagawin natin. But ito lang po is the context. That in the context of the online environment, we have to address the concerns of various sectors. So we have to push for increased salaries, increased remuneration, probably incentivization or a reimbursement for the online expenses of the teachers, a reimbursement or making up for the lost time of the parents in taking care of their children, attending their education. So, and of course, the government has to step in. Ano naman ang magagawa ng gobyerno? I think it's the duty of the government to step up and come up with a more efficient mode of delivery of its services, at least in the education field.
Yes. So napakaraming mga aspeto at mga mungkahi na kailangan nating ayusin dito sa education sector. So ano yung pinakamasasabi mong pwede nating maitulong sa edukasyon through una ang edukasyon? Ano yung apila nyo sa ating mga nakikinig para sa education sector?
Ang apila po namin is for us, all of us to be concerned. Kasi ang concern po dito is the future. Our children. Yung education po natin ngayon is in crisis. May tinatawag tayong crisis na education na parang hindi masyadong tutukan pero dapat nating bigyan ng karampatang atensyon. Ito po ang pangako ng Unang Edukasyon Party List or Unang Edukasyon. By the way, yung Unang Edukasyon po kasi yung aming registered name pero ang acronym po niya sa election is One ang Edukasyon. So ito po ang aming pangako na kami po, I will be a vanguard in the Congress to push for educational reforms so that all these glitches and pieces in the education sector that needs attention will be properly attended to. So marami po siyang problema. So kailangan po natin talaga ng mga matino at nag-iisip na mga mambabatas para ho maisulong ang mga batas na ito sa 19th Congress.
Okay. So with that, I think the Honorable Salvador Bong Belaro Jr. So siguro sana sa mga nakikinig sa atin na bigyan ng suporta ang inyong party list at hindi lang po yun ay isulong din ang interest ng ating education sector. As you said, kami po dito sa programa natin, the education sector. So our concern is really to bring out the concerns, issues, and interests of the education sector. So siguro yun ang mga iba pang pagkakataon na ating tatalakayin ng iba-ibang mga problema at concerns ng ating education sector. So maraming salamat at sa pahuling salita na lang kung anong masasabi nyo naman sa ating mga estudyante, mga magulang at mga administrators and faculty sa education sector kasi sila talaga ang kumbaga nasa frontline natin sa education sector.
Ang appeal po namin is that wag po nating sayangin yung boto kasi one of the features of the 1987 Constitution is to institutionalize a party list system. Ito po ay isang pagbabago na binigay ng 1987 Constitution para mas mapalawak ang komposisyon ng ating Kongreso. So sa ngayon po, ang edukasyon po ay nangangailangan ng tulong natin para ho ay matutukan yung mga problema sa edukasyon. And ang aming apila ay don't waste that vote. And also po, gusto ko rin tutukan siguro, gusto ko rin sabihin na sa textbook sector din, malaki rin ang dapat nating gawin. Kasi sa ngayon po, nakita nyo naman, ang daming mga pondo, panlumo. Bilyones po ng pera ng textbook sa TESDA ang hindi nagamit. So, ako po, isa pong advokasya din namin yan na tutukan din ang paggamit ng pondo ng TESDA kasi po talagang kami po kasi after po nung matalo kami nung 17th Congress, nagtayo po ako ng isang textbook school, yung Global Center of Education, Science and Technology Corporation. Ang napansin po namin talagang probably because of the pandemic din, talagang nasayang yung pondo kasi hindi nagamit. So,
kasi nga pag hindi nagamit, balik din yan yung pondo sa government ulit, hindi ba kung ganyan ang nangyayari?
Opo, kung ito po ay nagamit, so kailangan din po natin tulungan ang TESDA para po ito po yung mga programang ito ay maisulong at maibigay sa mga estudyante na kailangan.
Okay. So siguro dahil sa ating ng talakayan ngayon, so we were really talking about the field of law. So ngayon nababalik tayo dun sa pinag-umpisahan nyo kong na, okay, being a lawyer, being interested in the law, and eventually going into lawmaking, what will be your inspirational message for those who might have the ambition kung pinapangarap nila na maging isang abogado din sa kanilang kinabukasan?
Follow your dreams. Yun ang sabi sa akin ng aking nanay eh.
Yes. At yun ang ginawa nyo, di ba?
Opo. And at the same time, hindi lang dream. Kasi you have to act on your dreams because if you don't act on it, it becomes a nightmare. It will become a nightmare later on.
Yes. So I think with that, syempre nakita naman natin yung academic journey ni Congressman Salvador Bong Belaro. Napakagandang ehemplo sa ating mga estudyante, sa mga nangangarap na sila ay maging abogado din, and of course eventually to find that particular field of study, kung yun nga ay sa practice of law or lawmaking man, para mahanap ng ating mga mag-aaral at mga even faculty members kung paano nila i-guide yung mga nasa education sector towards that particular field. So maraming salamat po sa inyong mga magagandang salita, and of course to really inform the public about the whole system of party list. Hindi kasi masyadong naiintindihan na during the election, isa lang kasi yung iboboto ng mga na party list. Hindi ba? Pwede ngang ipaliwanag nyo ng konti yung tungkol sa party list system natin?
Yun po kasi ang medyo misconception po na ang iboboto po lang talaga sa party sa iisa. Kaya marami po ang nasayang na boto eh. Kasi pag bumoto po kayo ng dalawa, invalid na po yung boto natin. So ang apela po namin sa taong bayan is don't waste that vote. Hindi po namin sasabi kami ang iboto nyo, pero kami po ay nangangako na kung kami po ay inyong pipiliin at hindi po namin sasayangin ang inyong boto.
Okay, so yun lang po yung masasabi natin, part of voter education din. Under the party list system, nakalista po lahat doon yung mga party list, and isa lang po ang pipiliin natin. Hindi po tayo pwedeng pumili ng mahigit pa sa isa doon sa mahabang listahan ng mga party list. Okay, so with that, I think we had a very fruitful, meaningful, and substantive AAA Live today, September 15, 2021. So we will resume again for our Philippine launch broadcast in the next 2 weeks. So every weekday. So tomorrow, I will be returning to the Fulbright Visiting Scholarship host institution that I had, professors of the University of Tennessee and Martin, and of course to the Canadian Bureau of International Education invitation in Calgary, Canada. So I'll see you again tomorrow, AAA Live, where your academic goals are advanced and achieved. Regular program will be every Wednesdays from 7 to 8 in the evening, here only at the Education Channel. So magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Stay safe and healthy. This is Attorney Amihan April Alcazar, and wishing everyone a good evening. Maraming salamat po.